Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols Plus, a PlayStation podcast supplement. My name is Colin Moriarty. Today I'm joined by a very special crew indeed. These are the people that made Tribreaker, a Sacred Symbols Odyssey, or at least most of us. And I say us, although I didn't really do anything. So it's good to be here with you guys today. As usual, I'm here with Barry Johnson, the mastermind of Lillymo that brought me on board. I'm riding his coattails like you wouldn't even believe. Barry, how are you today, my friend? Good to see you.
I'm doing pretty good. As you might have heard, I brought Pepper back from getting spayed, so I've got her on my lap watching over her. But other than that, it's a good day.
Yeah, man. Pepper is the new pup.
Yep.
Lillymo's namesake passed somewhat recently, which is horrible. How was it going from, if it's not too personal, going from one dog to the next quickly? Some people recommend it, some people don't. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, so I don't mind talking about it at all. Lily was a very important part of my life. She was with me for 18 years. And
long life, dude. Long life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I live alone, so it's just me and her together for many, many years. And it was really hard saying goodbye to her and having to make that choice to put her down at the time when it was necessary. That was probably the hardest part of it for me, was having to be the one to make the call that her life ends.
Yeah.
But it was necessary. And I did plan to take a few months at least to process it all. But I was feeling pretty down, and I was talking with my mom, who was encouraging me to get a dog sooner. And she brought up that it would be really hard to house train a dog in the winter. So I should probably do it now, or else I'd be better off waiting till spring. And that just made me feel like, I don't want to spend this whole winter without a pup. So I looked at some of the listings she was sending me, and I couldn't find the ones she was sending me for dogs. She was sending me beagle listings, which is what I was interested in. But then when I was looking for her listings, I came across a beagle Jack Russell mix, and that was Pepper. And as soon as I saw her and her brothers and sisters, I thought, I got to drive up there and snag a puppy before it's too late. So that same day I went and got her, about a week after Lily passed.
Yeah, I think it's the only reason I ask is I always think of Ryan McCaffrey, who people might know works at IGN for a long time. He's an old friend of mine when I was working there, and his dog passed, and he went to this almost like an AA style group for people that mourn dog losses. And some people haven't been able to move on for years, but some people move on immediately, but then they imprint their old dog on their new dog and all this kind of stuff. And it's so interesting to me. I think I would want to move on quickly too. Hopefully Pepper will make an appearance in the next game. Might as well start integrating all these animals as much as we can. Well, Barry, let me stick with you. It's good to see you. First of all, you and I usually only talk over email, Discord, and so on. And happy holidays to you guys and everyone out there. This will go live. It's going to go live a little late. It's like the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where people are wishing Happy New Year's too late, because this is going to go up in the middle of the month. So I don't mean to be annoying like that. But I wanted to get together because we released Tribreaker, our newest game. This is our 6th game, the 5th that I've written, and the 6th that Barry has done. And first of all, I think it's really awesome. Congratulations to all of you guys that are here, and we're going to go around the horn and talk to everyone. But I'm really pleased with the game. I was emailing with Barry a little bit over the holidays, and I just think it's really, really good. And seeing everyone's responses that have played it has been heartening. And I think we're on a good track. So Barry, I want you to go around the horn and introduce everyone we have here today and kind of what they put into the game. And then we'll go around and talk about it. Talk about all the interdisciplinary stuff, making the game, where the ideas came from, and so on and so forth. So I'll throw it over to you for now.
All right, thanks. So I'll start by introducing one of the Joshes, Joshua, who handled the art for the game. I'd say he handled pretty much all the art except the logo and the story art, as well as the promo art. So, and Josh also worked with us on Twin Breaker a while back, so I thought it'd be fun to bring him back for this project. And anything you want to say to introduce yourself, Josh?
Hello. I don't know. Honestly,
tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, who are you? Where do you come from? Like, let's get it out there for everyone.
So I live central United States, Midwest. I'm in Iowa currently, right on the Mississippi. I can kind of see it from my roof if I go up on the roof. I've been doing pixel art for a long time. I kind of used it to pay for my wife's college, doing freelance art. So did a lot of supporting the family while she was going to school for doing that. So I've done a lot of freelance.
How selfless of you.
Stuff. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've got 6 kids. So
6 kids.
Yeah, she's more the selfless one. She's done a lot of work there. Yeah. So any effort that I put up is it shies in comparison to what she's been through. So we got a lot of kids.
How, if you don't mind me asking, what's the age range?
It's spread. So we got 23 down to 5.
Wow.
So yeah,
23 to 5.
Oh my!
Wow, good for you. I thought it was Dagan and I are 12 years apart, and everyone thought that was crazy. That's a big gap. Wow, that's awesome. Fun for the oldest and the youngest though, because Dagan and I had a great time when I was a kid. Because we were just in front, and that's even more extreme between your oldest and youngest. So that's probably pretty fun, actually.
Yeah, our youngest often will have these moments where she starts kind of crying, and she just wants one of the bigger ones, because they're almost like an extra parent in the house. When you have like an adult teenager, when you also have a small child, you end up having that sort of relationship where they're siblings, but it's more than that too. So
cool, man. Well, welcome. Good to see you. Yeah. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
In all ways. All right. Yeah, Barry, back to you. I'm sorry. Actually, real quick, for you, Joshua, I was looking you up on, I looked up everyone on Moby Games. It says here you worked on a game, Infinite Adventures. I'm sure you've worked on a bunch of other stuff though, too.
Yeah. Like I've worked on dozens and dozens of indie games, but the vast majority of indie games collapse before they ever see the light of day.
Right.
There are also many, many games that like people you work with as an independent contractor, you do a bunch of art for, and they never put you in the credits or anything like that. So you just go on, unnoticed. And
that's kind of shitty.
Yeah, it happens.
I think everyone should be credited personally.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I've been doing pixel art for like more than 10 years. I worked with, I spent more than a year working with Double 11.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I put in 100 hours a week working with them for almost a year on a project that never saw the light of day. It ended before it got canned before it ever got released, but it was an interesting project. I kind of cut my animation teeth on that project because I did like literally thousands of animations for kind of a wacky game. I'm not sure why it got canned. I never heard why. So,
it would be fun to look at your portfolio sometime. I love looking at games that, were canceled and unknown. There's so many of them, even our own. I mean, we have a bunch of projects that just kind of half circulate and all of the rest. It's funny, Moby Games, you have to kind of, I pay someone frankly to submit our games to Moby Games because it's fucking annoying. You have to like take I don't know if anyone knows, like you have to take a screenshot of every, like, so if you're dealing with like 1,000 people, you have to take screenshots of all of it and videos and like send them because you have to have the proof. But here's how important it is. You go look, people internally at the studio submit it themselves, because you go to any new game like that has been out a week and it'll already be on Moby Games, even if it's 1,000 or 2,000 people. So I think I try to submit our games there so people have like good, references, and it's like this, it's a great search engine. Atari owns it now. They bought it for like $500,000. It's an amazing database. All right, Joshua, welcome. I'm going on and on about nothing at all. Barry, back to you now for real.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just introduce the other Josh, Lazer Josh, who did all the music and all the sound effects for Tribreaker and some play testing, and likewise is doing the same for some of our upcoming games that we'll be introducing to people soon. How's it going, Josh?
Hey, man. Yeah, dude. So I'm Josh from East Tennessee, born and raised. And you probably won't find me on Moby Games because this is my first game. And it's very exciting. So,
well, you'll be there soon.
Yeah.
East Tennessee, was that part that was affected by the The storm?
The hurricane, just a bit. Like 30 minutes east of where I'm at is the North Carolina line. So yeah,
Okay.
there was quite a bit of relief and stuff from our area going out there.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, good that there was relief, not good that there was bad things happening for it.
Sure.
I was doing my Christmas cards. I actually couldn't send Barry his Christmas card this year because of the strike in Canada, the postal strike. And I'm really nerdy. I like to write a little note to everyone. And so I was going through the addresses and I was like, oh shit, my dad's brother, my uncle, Michael, I was like, writing the address and it's Asheville, North Carolina. And I was like, oh my God, dude. So I wrote this whole letter, it's like mea culpa being like, I'm so sorry. I didn't even realize. Then I hear back from him being like, no, we're good or whatever. Cause just decimated down there, but I'm glad you're well. Dude, the music's great. Cool. I think, and we can get a little bit more into this when it's time, but I think we made a major mistake with Super Perils not redoing the soundtrack, and it's no one's fault. But it inspired in me, just say something, see something, say something. Cause I remember playing Perils early and being like, I don't know, man, maybe we should redo the soundtrack. And then it mattered. So it was really important for us to get good music. And we did just that. Barry's the ultimate, interdisciplinarian. But we need him focused on the design and the core chops that he brings. So it was good to have you on the project. And I'm excited. I mean, I've already heard a bunch of the things you're working on for the role-playing game and other stuff. So it'll be good. And people are so annoyed about the role-playing game. It's not even going to, I don't think it's going to be game 7 or 8 either. So I'm sorry. I should have never said anything at all about it. Sure.
Lazer, I'm excited. I'm excited for for the other projects to come out for sure. And I think Barry's music in Twin Breaker was inspiring for a few of the tracks in Tribreaker, actually. So that was pretty cool. They were kind of like remixes of Barry's stuff. So he is a crazy man to be able to do everything that he's doing and write the music and write the programming. And he shows me screenshots of his programming and I look at it like, he's no way, dude. He's like a walking Adderall pill, isn't he? Straight up, dude. I don't know. He's on there at 5:30 in the morning and I'm sick. And then I'm up here at 10 PM and he's writing at 10 PM. I'm like, all right, dude, cool. I feel vastly so incompetent. Yeah, when I deal with Barry, because I'm I'm the CEO of a business and I do all these other things, but it's I can barely concentrate on all the shit I have in front of me. I usually dedicate weekends to doing stuff for Lillymo, and this motherfucker's over here just like you're saying, doing all of it. That's what's so fun to go back to to the original Perils specifically, because it's wow, dude, it's obviously a very rudimentary game, but it's I couldn't fucking do this. Not a chance in hell. Barry, back to you.
Yeah, I haven't played the original Perils in probably a few years now. Sometimes I want space from the game or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to play it for a while after I play it so many hundreds of times. But
I should say real quick too, is that I don't think the old music is, especially in Twin Breaker, but in Perils, is bad. The new Super Perils and the 16-bit aesthetic that we were going for was unmatched by the bass MIDI music. It was dissonant. That was the problem, So I want to be clear. It wasn't a lack of talent. I'm just a drummer. I don't, not a real musician. So
you don't have to worry about that. I'm well aware and appreciative of what Josh brings to the project with his music chops. So no worries there. Some people might already know Lachlan. I think he's been here with us before, but Lachlan did all the story art, all the promo and box art, the logo. He was a lead artist on Super Perils. He did box art for us on that game and Twin Breaker. And I think you already said we're releasing Habroxia 1 physically, right? So I'm not.
I have it sitting in my kitchen.
So he did that
2,000 copies of it. Yeah.
And he's done a bunch of trailers for us. So how's it going, Lachlan?
Good. Thank you for the very generous intro there. Yeah. Well, I think that covers everything pretty much. But so I'm Lachlan or Locke or whatever. I know there's already a Lock in the Last Stand thing, so we might have to do our Joker pull cue snap fight to the death.
Sure. Well, you got to emphasize, obviously different spellings, but maybe we can emphasize a different part of it, like Lock. Lach.
Sure. Well, it's like it's Scottish, so yeah, just put at the back of your throat, I guess.
There's some phlegm in there.
Right.
Yeah.
There we go. We'll figure it out.
Like me this morning, for sure. After brekkie. But yeah, so I've helped out Lillymo with a few things, as Barry mentioned. But on this game, it was just cutscene art and the dialogue boxes. So whenever the boys are talking to each other on their faux sort of like Metal Gear intercoms, and yes, the title screen and some cover art and the trailer, which I think came out not too long ago now, right around the launch of the game.
Yeah, it all came out. Yeah, we had a pretty aggressive schedule, I think, once we... I think I said this on Sacred, I don't know, but we were kind of getting afraid that the game was going to leak. Because we were starting to submit it for certification, and then that's when shit starts popping up on Exophase and PSN profiles and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, I think we just wanted to get it out, and be like, all right, fine. Because I remember telling my wife, like, I didn't wake up this morning thinking we were even going to announce the game today, so we were getting it going. But congratulations to all of you. I mean, I think it's a wonderful project. I think it's a lot of fun. I was lamenting a little bit, like and we talk candidly on all things Sacred Symbols, like it's not selling great. But I think that's the market. I really don't think it's a reflection of the game, and I don't know what to do about that. Maybe we can talk about that a little later, because it's complicated out there right now. But what I've really been pleased about, like I said at the top, was it seems like people that are playing it really like it. And in some way you can't ask for much more than that. Like, you can't force people to kind of pay attention to your game, but should you get their attention, that they're pleased with the product, I think is a great compliment. And especially to you, Barry. I mean, you did a really great job. The vision of the game is awesome. And as we say goodbye to this universe, I don't think we'll come back to these games. It's cool. It's like kind of a full circle for you and I as well. And getting back to like what brought us together to begin with, which was the original Twin Breaker. So Barry, what are your reflections now that the game's been out for a little while? How are you feeling about it, and how are you feeling about people's responses to it? I'm curious, like, what you've been focused on in terms of, I have a really hard time reading people's opinions on things that I worked on, watching videos. It's a struggle for me. I actually think the negative feedback to Twin Breaker's story, comparable to the rest of the game, really instilled in me, like, I don't want to know. But I know you're like the exact opposite. So I'm curious, like, what you've been reading and what you're feeling.
I wouldn't say I'm the exact opposite. I definitely started out that way, where I like just wanted to see every single piece of media, every thought that anyone had about the game. But then around the time Super Perils came out, I was kind of more in your boat, where I like didn't really read many of the reviews. So when this came out, I wasn't really expecting to read many. I figured I'd just kind of like take a glance at like the general overall feedback. But I did end up checking out a good deal of them, probably most of them. So I was fairly happy with everything I saw. There was maybe one review that was somewhat negative, but in terms of the feedback from both reviews and players, I was generally pleased with everything I was hearing. One of the main points that I wanted to focus on with this project was really just to improve on Twin Breaker in every single way we could think of as a team, in terms of the writing, the art, the music, the gameplay, the variety. I think we stepped it up at every single way, and I saw some people echo that sentiment in their reviews and their feedback. So I was really pleased to hear that. Obviously, with the sales, we were hoping for a bit more, but it is what it is. I definitely have some takeaways for how we could change our approach for the next release and the next releases to try and make more of an impact. I think that's really an important thing now, is that you can't rely on the storefronts to get natural views there, to get natural audience, like people to see your game and come across it and check it out. You really have to grab people's attention before the release. You have to get the wish lists on Steam. You gotta do all these things. And with this release, I thought it would be interesting to try the approach of announce it and get people's attention and then have it out real quick right after that. Because I thought that might be the best approach to really get people's attention and have them not forget about the game. But I think I overestimated how much attention we could get in that short, brief period of time. And I think what we really need to do in the future overall is just focus on building attention for a project before it releases, and not just have a trailer and then a release trailer later, like which was what we did with Super Perils. We had 2 trails with Super Perils, and we didn't really put anything interesting in between those two. And there was a lot of time in between those 2 things. So there's a lot of time to lose attention. But if we had done something like that and really focused on having a demo, for example, on Steam, and having like video discussions showing off different elements of the gameplay, getting people really thinking about the game in the months leading up to it, I think that would be a better approach to try and really have people know that it's coming out and what it is when that time comes, when it's important to get in that like top whatever to be featured on the front page. Like we were very close to with Tribreaker, frankly, on PlayStation. I think we were 2 slots away from making the front page on 2 different days in the month. So we were close, but unfortunately we didn't breach that gap to really meet more eyes.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I didn't hate the release date either for the game. Like, I'm more bullish about December releases these days than I obviously ever would have been. It would have been anathema to everything that made sense in marketing, not 5 years ago, 10 years ago, of course, back in the day. Games didn't come out then, but it was really Crisis Core that actually opened my eyes, the re-release of Crisis Core, which happened like right before Christmas, and everyone loved it and everyone was playing it and enjoying it. I'm like, if you can actually hit this space right. I think what really frustrated me, especially on PSN, I don't know the other platforms really at all as far as a purchaser of games is concerned, but it's like we're just surrounded by bullshit and we're getting tanked by, I'm sorry, like it's just, some of the audience on Sacred gets upset because they're like, your games are indistinguishable from these games. I'm like, you're fucking crazy if you think that. Like, like
seriously,
it's just like these things. There are things on there that are just insanity. Like how like we have to share space and there's no care. It's all AI driven art, like box art. It's just clearly like you can look at it and just be like AI. And I think it's just the discoverability, that natural discoverability that I used to really love is gone. The idea, I was just talking to my dad about this, actually. I was like, the idea that there were like fewer than 1,000 games total on NES. Like you could know it. The whole, and like, it's impossible now. And I just lament that. And, and I lament it for other games too. I was saying how I played games like Iron Meat this year and a few others where it seemed like no one cared. And I'm like, dude, if this game came out 10 or 15 years ago on XBLA, it would be fucking huge. Like, it's crazy. It just bothers me. So I feel sometimes like, maybe there's a lack of interest in the kinds of games we're doing, or we're just getting washed out, and it's a bummer. It's just, Barry, if like you were making games on XBLA in 2008, you'd have like $25 million in the bank. Like at this point, it's just like the times have just changed. It's kind of a bummer. I was surprised that so many games came out around us at that holiday season too. I thought it was going to inoculate us, but I think a lot of people had the same idea that we did. So I don't know. It's a bummer.
Either that or the flow is just that consistent that it doesn't matter. It's always going to be that thick.
There's just a constant backlog of them in the back burner that's just processing, coming through, more. How many do you think they turned down on top of that? I mean, any?
I don't know. It doesn't seem like they turn anything down. Like when I saw that ridiculous Horizon clone that's being made in China, and then they're like, oh, it's coming to PS5. I'm like, what? Yeah, they're copying your IP. Like, is anyone home? It's just all automated now. It's like, it's just, and then they'll spit our game back out during certification because of something stupid. Like, oh, this trophy's too easy. It's like, our trophies are too easy.
Yeah, that
Holy
same week.
Shit.
That same week I bought a game where I knew nothing about it. It was just a blind purchase of a pixel art game. And it was a 1 minute platinum with like no obstacles. You're a cat and you just jump around and you get the platinum.
Certified.
Yeah. Perform 10.
Those trophies are fine though.
Yeah, certified, but don't you dare give trophies away for changing the music or anything like that. We won't have that.
I did the math on
look quaint. Sorry. Yeah.
I did the math on what I was seeing, like an article about Steam and all the games that came out on Steam in 2024. And I think the math came out to like 82 games a day was what was hitting the market.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
That's
reading
crazy
about-
to me, but I know that that's like the situation on Steam. So like the fact that it's like 20 or more sometimes on like PlayStation or Xbox is like what's really been surprising to me, to see that they've been headed so far in that direction.
I can go on and on about this. Half the audience is like, Colin, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
We know. I know. I'm sorry. It really upsets me, because it upsets me for everyone, for the player, for like Sony or Nintendo or all these washed out ecosystems, for people that are really putting, like when I play that game Bat Boy and then I go on Steam and it's like 100 reviews. I'm like, 100 reviews? This is a masterpiece of a pixel art game. What is going on? You know, it infuriates. It's maybe people are just not into. Maybe there's something to the theory that like it's just too many of our kinds of games too. Like people just started, like it was more novel, you know, when people went back, Mega Man 9, you know, something like that, as opposed to where we're at now. But I don't know. I digress, as I usually do. All right. I want to get, and Barry, I you know, help me steer it here, but I want to get a little bit more into the art, because the one thing that I really appreciate, and I think that Barry and I are clearly have some sort of mind meld simpatico thing, where he kind of just gets, there's almost nothing that Barry has executed in a game where I'm like, I want this. The world map in Habroxia 2 is a really good example, where I'm like, I think we should have a world map.
That was H1.
Like, well, yeah.
Yeah,
one.
the remake. The update to Habroxia 1, you wanted the world map, yeah.
Right. That's what it was. And I was like, and then it's just, you know, these things are executed perfectly. And I feel that way about the opening cutscenes. I feel that way about the narration boxes. I feel that way about everything wherein like I can literally just say something and for some reason the vision is perfect. So I want to compliment you guys on that. Because I think that's all, like, you find your kinds of people that understand the games that we're referencing. And I don't want, and I think Barry and I are on the same page on this. I don't think we really explicitly ever talked about it, but like, I don't want to make new old games. I want to make games that you would have found on a fucking shelf in a video store in 1989 for the NES. Like that Mage game that was released a few years ago on NES. That was really cool. So I guess, Lachlan, let's go to you first. You did especially, I'm curious about the narration art and all of the rest. What was your vision for all of this?
I was just interpreting your words, I think, was what my vision was, which was fun as well, because I think there was you, not to make you self-conscious, whatever, but it was a really fun world to play in terms of like the story and the scope. I think it's like much larger than maybe people appreciate, particularly with the the geopolitical sort of like backstory there. So it was fun to have a bit of a play with that, particularly with the sort of like not NASA, but like their motivations for what they were going to be doing in interstellar travel, and then also the military industrial complex that was interested in the other aspects of it too. So it was fun to try and like, that's where that motif came initially, for that, you know, rather on the nose of like red versus blue particular panel. And then I guess it was just trying to be like, what would the future look like according to Colin Moriarty, and trying to like relate that in a pixel art sort of what would feel like a classic NES sort of 2 or 3 frame backdrop, but and then also doing like the big avant-garde like flag behind Dustin going down the escalator and stuff like that. So I think I wanted to lean into this, like it wanted to feel like a mix of like 80s, late 80s, early 90s anime crossed with the tone and sort of like camp, I guess, as you've been saying, of the 80s action movies too. Mm-hmm. So it's got that sort of bravado, like a tongue-in-cheek sort of attitude, but at the same time, everyone in the context of that world takes it seriously. So that sort of, yeah, that was my approach, I guess, was like make it as like bold as possible within the context of those that space. That's why everyone's like big and muscly, and the ships are, you know, graphic, I guess.
Yeah, they are. They certainly are.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, you did a really nice job. Like I love the vision. I always, for some reason, imbibe like Castlevania 3 and the first Ninja Gaiden as like these touchstone games that told you stories, but in the NES 8-bit context, but didn't really get in the way. And really, a lot of that storytelling is actually not through the text, but through the art. And I think that we've kind of successfully done that here as well. And yeah, it made me laugh. Like some of the stuff made me laugh. And just the visual representation of everyone I thought was really well done. And yeah, the phallic nature of the ships and stuff. It's it's silly. It's intentionally kind of different than Twin Breaker. And I think that resonated with people. So yeah, well done on that front. And then Joshua,
that was all Barry too. Sorry, just real quick.
No, go ahead,
that
please.
Barry, where I think it all started with like he mentioned one message is like, do you want to do this thing where it's basically the Austin Powers like, you know, is it a giant one-eyed monster sort of joke? And like
the gifts started flying, dude.
Yeah, and then it was like, okay, yeah, we're on something here. And that was where that came from, I guess. But yes, anyway.
No worries. It's yeah, Barry, what made you want to do that? Like our games are not really explicit, you know? So then to do something like this, I think is funny and cool. Like I have no problem with it.
So, yeah, that's a funny one. This project, it was a funny one where I was like, well, we talked about making a sequel to Twin Breaker like right after it came out, but it was like a very brief conversation that we never really finished. So it just kind of stayed in the back of my mind. Like, I think I maybe pitched, actually, I think I pitched you an idea of something like an ever scrolling game where it'd be like kind of like level 11, I guess, but like that's the main gameplay of it. Anyway, you threw back the Tri-Breakers name then.
Yep. And
ever since then I was just like, oh, how do I make that work where the name Tri-Breaker actually makes sense to have three, where you know, we have the 2-paddle situation, we have the 4-paddle situation. I was like, the only way we can do it is if we do something with this ball to make it unique. And then I don't remember one time I was just thinking about Dustin, I guess, and I was just like, what if I made him a dick or something?
Yeah.
And,
I've been there.
Because you have the 2 paddles and you need to put a third thing in there. So it just like, you got the 2 balls and you got the shaft. So then I was like, we'll put thrusters on it to make it more long, but still work. And because I came up with the idea of steering it, right? And I'm like, if we're going to steer the ball, it has to be like pointing in a direction so that you know like where it's angled for the steering. So then that just led to the shape of like a rounded bullet shape, and you know, it led to the dick from there.
It is interesting. I like it. It made me laugh, and it's fun. It's true that the name Tri-Breaker came out almost immediately, and for some reason I had envisioned it, and I don't know if we talked about it, or I know I drew a picture of it for myself. I was trying to figure out, it's in one of my notebooks, where I was like, could it be like a triangular space in some sense? Like how would you? And I was thinking of the Vita at the time too, which is so stupid because it's like, why would you make something exclusive for Vita or things that needed Vita, where like, could you control something with a touchpad or something? And I don't know. It was, so that's where the name came from. The name actually made itself make sense when Dustin joined the show, because Dustin wasn't even on the show when Twin Breaker came out. So we actually kind of just fell back into that name, into that motif. And it just ended up being like, oh, it's just the third person. So yeah, I think you did a nice job there. But Joshua, I wanted to talk to you about kind of the in-game stuff now. We had something to work off of. This is the way I envision, and obviously the quick turnaround of these games like the Mega Man games, for instance, on NES, just, you know, being able to kind of turn things around, refine things or whatever. But obviously there's a ton of new assets too.
Yeah.
So how did you balance all of that and approach this game? Because this game does demand a lot more than just the brick breaker that was Twin Breaker.
Yeah, so I mean, when Barry first came to me with the project, I hadn't actually done any art at all for like more than a year. The market got kind of funky with the NFTs, and freelance got really crappy, and then AI came along and everybody was like, we can just make games with AI. And, you know, so the freelance market for artwork went boom. So like independent contract work was really hard to find. All the other artists were really struggling at it, and I've got other things that I do, so I just kind of focused on that and wasn't too dedicated to it. Barry approached me and I came back to it and I was really, I wanted, like, for my own sake to do a much better job than I did on Twin Breaker. Because I didn't think that I did a bad job on Twin Breaker, but I knew I could do better. And I felt like with Twin Breaker, I felt like it was all about, like, Twin Breaker to me felt like it was intentionally simple, like super small scale, like little details. Like a lot of the artwork that I did was like zoomed out stuff that was like very minimalistic in design and stuff. And I wanted this stuff to be better. And I don't know, I think I just dedicated to, I wanted to focus on everything was better than it was in Twin Breaker and make sure that like all of the assets were better. So there really wasn't a lot of reused stuff. We actually went over everything. Even the bricks. I started with those and focused on color first and foremost because I felt like we could do better with the colors and make Tribreaker really pretty. So like, and that was something I talked to Barry a lot about, was all of the screenshots he would take of how it looked when I would hand it in and he would plug it in, and then he would send me screenshots and show me. I would just kind of sit and I had it up on other monitors what the colors look like, and we tweaked the colors a lot, and I would change the colors and send it back to him. And so I think that like mostly almost everything got touched up, and we went over the top of everything and made it where it had better detailing, better color, better animations. I think that was kind of the main focus for me, was everything had to be better than it was in Twin Breaker. So
yeah, I think it was well done. And I also think it must have been an interesting challenge just, from the perspective of a game so much more dynamic from a gameplay perspective than Twin Breaker, thus requiring just a number of different sorts of assets. I love just a lot of the different, sprites and assets that we use in the game. And the game does feel like it, when I came up with the idea of like going through time, it was like, how do we do this in kind of a basic way? And I think it's nicely done. Yeah.
I really had I'll be honest with you, it was rather challenging to keep coming up with new ways to represent space and time in an interesting and amusing way. I spent a lot of time on the backgrounds, really just kind of coming up with ways to make them interesting, so that even when people kind of got more bored with whatever was going on the top level and they started paying attention to what was going on in the back, that there were lots of little hidden goodies for people. I really think that there was some challenge though to coming up with the different space backgrounds and things like that, where they felt like they were unique and new. And Barry was very responsive to letting me redo things or plug in something that was really rough and let it be the thing that was being shown to everybody else on the team and everything, until I got a better version in and things like that. And it gave me time to look at it and really like see the flaws that were there, so that I could, go over it again, or this isn't working with the foreground colors and things like that. So to give it time to really refine overall. So
when I was playing it, there were times where I would point out little quirks to my wife. She's usually like on the couch just playing Switch or something when I'm playing a game. Mm-hmm. And I love just little things that are reminiscent of the games I love, the twinkling lights in the background, and just little touches, just little animation touches. And the small things that games that would have been challenged from resource management would have had to utilize to make the game pop. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm an old school gamer myself. Like I'm a little bit older. I cut my teeth on the NES. So like those games are very much in my wheelhouse of the things. Like when I look back at my favorite games of my youth, it was, Mega Man's and the Zelda on the NES and the Super Nintendo, and, all those games like that. Like I look at those games as like the good old days of games, and I go back to a lot of those old games and replay them a lot. I look at those sort of details, and I really focus on those, like the background elements and things like that, that there's a lot of stuff when you play games that you don't pay attention to. And then when you go back to it later, I think that a lot of those like really great games that stood out, you're not paying attention to the background and all the little small elements because the gameplay is so good. And then later you come back to it and you're playing it again and you notice something you never saw before and things like that. So I definitely tried to like lace some stuff in there like that. And there are little inspiration sources like the paddles. We kind of changed the design of the paddles in this one a little bit so that they're more rounded, which was something very requested for the cohesion with making it more phallic in nature. But I really
good note, Barry.
Yeah, I really took inspiration and sort of I was looking at like Super Metroid doors and things like that for like the way that they were like bubble shields.
Mm-hmm.
So like they kind of look like that a little bit, and that's intentional on my part because I was just like, this is sort of my nod to Super Metroid, and like there's lots of little things like that I kind of laced in hidden places. So yeah,
cool, man. Yeah, it's really well done. And by the way, totally sympathetic to the plight you were discussing about the work drying up and the dynamics changing. Yeah. Brought up my brother earlier, Dagan, who's been an animator for almost 30 years. And, it's tough out there, man. I know from him and, very experienced people like you guys. It's too bad. The embrace of all of these AI tools is very concerning to me, but that's another thing where the audience is gonna be like, shut the fuck up, Colin.
I think that like the real creators are coming back to it a little bit. Like they've realized that this isn't, it's not a get rich quick, easy. Oh, we don't have to have artists anymore and things like that. I think that they're starting to see the writing on the wall that there's going to be litigation against the way that it's got to be coming down the road where they're going to start, carving out laws around how things can be used and what they're doing with it. But
yeah, I think a lot of that hinges on that New York Times, I think it's OpenAI lawsuit, right? Like really the way that goes, I think is going to have a lot of influence on that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the marketplace is that it's always been a feast or famine sort of thing. So as an artist, if you're working as an independent contractor, just keep at it because to get noticed, you got to be active. If you're not making splashes, people aren't going to see you. So even if you're not working, you got to be working. And it's, there are going to be times where the pool dries up and the strong ones that keep moving are the ones that survive, and the people that give up and go away make space for the bigger fish. And then, the water will come back again. The rains will come and there'll be more space to move around again. It'll come. I think that's just the way it's always been. I've been doing it for more than a decade and I've seen it multiple times where it kind of fluctuates. So,
yeah, I appreciate your optimism. I think that we'll see how this ebb and flow goes. I do think that there's going to be a greater demand for boutique art and handmade, like what we will maybe call unassisted or handmade games in the future, or like a selling point. No AI was used in the making of this video game. I've compared it to Rage Against the Machine's old records, where they would have on the back of that there were no turntables used on these records to make people know that like the guitars were making the scratching noises and all the rest. And so maybe that will be like a selling point at some point. I don't know. I hope so. But I'm really rooting for the New York Times, strangely, because I don't like the New York Times, but I'm rooting for them in that lawsuit, because it is about sourcing, how do you know what a Renaissance art, how do you know what a piece of Renaissance art looks like, and how did you start painting it and like knowing how to make one yourself and all the rest? Like, where is all this information being gleaned from? The human, I was watching something about Da Vinci the other day, specifically about the Last Supper, mural, and his level of obsession. It's like, it's human. It's deeply human. I don't want some machine that can make the greatest song and do this. Although he was a polymath and did a bunch of great things, I don't want like the whole spectrum of arts to be controlled by this one thing. It's like, no, the dude that was obsessed with the form of the body, and like, just, that's all he did. And he painted like 15 things ever. It's like, that's so fucking sick, but everyone wants to mechanize it. Anyway, everyone's like, Colin, please. All right, Lazer, let's get you going here. So this is your first project that that is released anyway.
Yeah, interestingly. Yeah, that's an interesting point, because sorry.
No, it's the most recent one for him too, I think, right?
Yeah. This one I didn't have to make it in a couple months, but more or less I did make it in a couple months. I'm not going to say how long I necessarily had, but my tires were spinning for a little bit, dude. It was first I wanted it to definitely sound different than the other two things that I'm working on. And so that was the first thing I wanted to shoot for. And then, the silliness aspect, I kind of wanted to lean into. I wanted to get this kind of funky, hip hoppy, kind of not serious sounding soundtrack. That was kind of the point of the OST. I asked Barry for some influences, and he sent me like a Batman song and a Kirby song, and he sent me like 9 different things, and it was like, okay.
You mean Sunsoft Batman?
Oh yeah.
Barry, you're a man. You know,
yeah.
just how to touch me.
Absolutely. I mean, lots of good stuff. More or less, it was like, yeah, just make what you want, dude. So that's kind of how it seemed. But dude, it was a blast to work on. It was a lot of fun to make all the little sounds and the bubbly paddles that you made, Josh, is like, okay, I need like this little bouncy, bubbly kind of a sound when we hit those. And that was a fun aspect of it. But yeah, just, it was a blast trying to make it sound old school, retro. I'm a big retro gamer, so I have a huge love for chiptunes. Shout out Rainbow Dragon Eyes, the dude that does like Sea of Stars and The Messenger. Absolutely my favorite chiptune artist. So there might sound like a hint of some of that inspired in maybe the boss track specifically. I kind of leaned into that a little bit, but yeah, dude, it was an absolute blast to make, and I appreciate getting to do it. So
I'm curious. So I love art, obviously, but I can't draw a stick figure. Like, it's very foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was always so jealous of my brother growing up, and always wanted to draw and always tried and was just always so bad at it. But I love it, but it's a foreign world to me. But music is much more familiar to me. And so
Sure.
I'm curious, like, what do you have like are you you said you love chiptunes, so chiptunes is not your main space, or what instruments do you play? What kind of projects do you work on? Like what role does music play in your life professionally?
Well, this right now, excitingly, because this was kind of like the merge of my 2 biggest hobby, or not just hobbies, but like games and music. Yeah, I started playing music really young, and played in bands in high school, did jam bands, and then eventually started playing local shows. I played drums first, actually, in the band, but I was learning piano, taking piano lessons. So yeah, I could more or less pick up and play lots of different stuff.
Yeah, I believe it.
What I mean? It's kind of one of those things, I guess. But yeah, dude, I made beats for a while. I made like some EDM music, live recordings, but chiptunes are, let me clarify real quick, because there's going to be some like super hardcores probably in the chiptune community that I will set the record straight. I'm not making real chiptune with a tracker like Family Tracker or something. I'm still using MIDI, but I'm writing stuff with 8 channels or less if I can, so that there's not too much simultaneous sounds to really capture that old school sound. I'm not throwing a bunch of crazy reverb or any sneaky little mixing tricks. All the sounds are true NES or Genesis or those. It's all those sound chips. Using like VST plugins and stuff. So the music nerds will know what I'm talking about. So anyway, it's not real chiptune, if you will.
Yeah, I appreciate your note for the purists. Yeah,
sure. I had to put that out there. I told myself I had to put that out there. But yeah, no, to make it sound right. So yeah, I didn't know that I'd be getting into chiptunes when I first started pursuing getting into the games industry. It made sense. I was a Sacred fan and a Beyond fan back in the day and stuff. So I was already in the community. I actually, what pushed me to reach out to you, Colin, and to Barry at the same time was Henry's episode of Sacred Plus that you guys did. Cool. Oh, and good. Dude, Colin, you were literally like, all you got to do is ask is more or less the message. It was like, people are afraid to put themselves out there. And I was like, bet I'm going to take a selfie video and send this to Colin. And then you guys said, we don't need anything right now. Hit us up in 6 months. What did I do? I put 6 months to the day on my phone, on my calendar, and emailed you another selfie video. And here I am. So yeah, that's what inspired me to get here. But I'm excited to be doing chiptunes because it was very challenging. It's nothing I've ever made before. Actually, it's my first time trying to make old school retro video game music. You know what I mean? And I freaking love it. It's a blast.
Yeah,
awesome.
You knocked it out of the park, guy. Like,
dude,
I commented on this when the music came out and went into the game as we were working on it. That I had never seen the case where somewhat like the music came in and got plugged into the game and it made my art look better because the music was so good that it elevated the game and the aesthetic, and it actually did like improve my own view of my artwork listening to the music of the game. It just did something. It was magical. So
that's freaking cool, man. I appreciate the kind words about that. And I think it is a full package kind of a thing, you know. The boss sprites with the boss song, they hit together to me, you know. Dustin and the freaking American flag floating in the background looks sick with that funky weird beat playing. I don't know. I like it. We're all going to be biased towards it, right? But yeah, I think it works as a full package for sure, dude. The art all works great. So.
I have to email you later because there's one. I want to find a specific track, but there's one track that I am absolutely in love with. That I was bothering my wife with, being like, "You got to hear this. Like, this is like so good. It really is excellent."
Cool.
And
did anyone catch the Sacred Symbols intro? I remixed Ramon's song to the Sacred. So it's like Sacred Groove is actually technically Ramon's Sacred Symbols intro for the podcast. So
interesting. I have to listen to it with that lens.
Listen to it back and back, and you'll catch it.
That's the intro, like that's the title screen.
That's the tutorial song, and that's the not credit song, the end song / secret ending song.
Right.
So you don't hear much.
I need to listen to that with that context.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really cool. I'm a musician and I love playing music, but I am not a composer of music. It's two totally different things. Like I've never in my life tried to write anything. When I was in a band, when I was younger, the guitarist wrote everything. Then he was like, here's the song. And it's like, okay, you know, and then you like make a beat to it and you play it. And I put on my headphones almost every day in my drum kit and play other people's music. I love playing and I love doing that and learning that stuff. But man, executing on a vision like that. And that's what I was saying earlier to kind of bring it full circle with, like, I understand music and that's really fucking impressive. I always feel that way when my friend Ramon, who's always on the shows I always talk about, who's a musician, it's like when he sends me something, I'm like, this is crazy, you know?
Absolutely.
And I think about it differently than, you know, visual art, because I couldn't even approach ever replicating that kind of thing. But it's like, I have technically the skill, I guess, technically to do something like that, but could never actually do it. So yeah, well done. And excited for people to hear more of your work too, as you explore these different genres alongside us. And
sure.
And I hope, I mean, for all of us, I hope that, well, for you guys, not for me, but it's like for you guys, I hope these games attract you attention for other projects too. And that's what I wanted to say, you know, Josh, about what you were saying about reaching out. It's like, man, so many people reach out to me. There are so many about many things. There are so many talented people, and I wish that I could leverage every one of them, because everyone's so eager. When IGN noticed me when I was a GameFAQs writer, and they actually hired me to write a guide for Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2. That was going to be my first strategy guide. And but then they emailed me back and they were like, hey, by the way, that was going to start in like a week. It's like, we need you to write a guide. If you're interested, we have a guide project for Spyro Enter the Dragonfly, which is like way outside my wheelhouse. And I was like, yes. And that's all I kept saying. Course. Every time they gave me something, like, yes. And just like being available, but it's 100%. All luck and timing too, man, you know? And that's the unfortunate thing, because there's been great talents that I've come across before. And I'm like, damn, dude, I just have nowhere to slot you. So I'm glad to have made your acquaintance in this regard for our company.
Awesome.
Barry, what's on your mind? I mean, like, where do you want to go from here? What's your vision?
Well, I just had a couple thoughts of what was just said. First of all, when I was working on, I didn't work on the trailer. I just captured a bunch of footage for both trailers that, wow, I didn't think about that. It's the two locks, isn't it, that did the two trailers? But yeah, when I was capturing the footage, you always have to capture with the music volume turned all the way off, so that you can have a final mix that has game audio and whatever the track will be that's used. And yeah, it was such a stark difference playing the game with no music the whole time. I basically did like 2 full playthroughs with just no music. So just to echo what everybody already knows, that music plays a huge role in the game. And on the spirit of like searching out his music, you can find the soundtrack for the game now on Spotify and all those music streaming services and the like. So if you want to give it a listen. Oh, and the other thing I was thinking about was the rounded paddles, right? That was actually a random piece of feedback from someone on Twin Breaker, was that the way that we have the gameplay where if you hit it to the left of the paddle, it angles left, and to the right of the paddle, it angles right. They said it would be more suited towards a rounded paddle. So it's not just all about the balls. It's also a gameplay, a match of what you would expect based on what you see. So
let me further compliment. By the way, I was just looking. I totally forgot that the album's on Spotify. So I just went and added it to my list because I was like, oh shit. How much new metal can a person listen to? Before they need something else.
Oh, I have a rank for you, Colin, as well. Like afterwards, for a new band, if you're interested, new metal wise, an Aussie new metal band.
Oh yeah, I'm always down for recommendations and suggestions. I've been listening to, what Australian band have I been? New metal band have I been listening to? It's 28 Days.
Cool.
They were like a rap rock outfit in like the 90s, whatever. Anyway, who cares?
Sure. Did you see the where Creed, speaking of new metal, Creed had their biggest year in 2024. They made like $26 million on tour this year in ticket sales, more than all of their other years combined of tour. Apparently.
Oh, wow.
It's freaking, I don't know if that's true. This is me going off of a headline, but that's, yeah.
I believe that this would be their biggest year because I was seeing that I watch music stuff on YouTube all the time. Like I love live performances and like it just recommends me shit all the time. So Creed was touring and like that stuff came up and I'm like, dude, these guys shred still. Like this is awesome.
Still kind of getting it.
I would I've never got to see Creed. I would have totally I would have gone to see almost anything when I was a kid. I went and just saw so many random things when I was a teenager in my 20s, but that never presented itself. Like I would have totally done it if it ever had presented itself, but I just wasn't. Right. I lived in San Francisco for a long time. It feels like a place they wouldn't play, actually. But maybe they must have gone somewhere in that area. Anyway. Barry, I wanted to ask you, like, what were the different games that you were pulling? I mean, I think it's fairly obvious, but like, where was the vision for pulling from the different games and making a Pac-Man clone or a Snake clone or something like that into the game and kind of shaking things up? Because I think it was a key component that allowed me to reimagine like what I always thought Twin Breaker's sequel would have been, which was like, Arkanoid to Arkanoid 2 or something. Like I knew we had to re-envision and I knew we had to get rid of the 4 paddles things and all that kind of stuff like it was said. But what made you want to pull from these specific games? Are these love letters to games that you care about, or are they just kind of, cliches in some sense that you wanted people to, acknowledge, oh, I understand this is Frogger. I understand this is whatever.
So there's 2 places that kind of led me in that direction. The first was that in terms of improving on Twin Breaker in every way that I could, I wanted to switch up the kind of standard formula and introduce a new gameplay mechanic with every single level, which you might remember from that doc I had with the levels. It was just like one line, what the gameplay mechanic is that's introduced there. So that was one aspect of it. But the other was I was playing WarioWare on the Game Boy Advance. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, of course.
So it's just like a bunch of micro games, like mini games that have like 5 to 15 seconds or something like that. And I thought it would be cool to do something like that, but with each level rather than a little fraction of a level. Like instead of 15 seconds, get a full 3 minutes to actually explore a gameplay idea. So that was where the format itself came from. The levels were just like, it wasn't so much this game is one that I really want people to know that I love. It was more just like, what's a fun mechanic from a game that I know that would work with this this game, basically. But also like that brings me back to the Dustin levels, right? Because Dustin wasn't in the last game, so I thought it would be fun to really like give him his shine and have like those 10 Dustin levels where he's off on his own. And that gave me the freedom to explore like more arcade style ideas that don't need to have the paddles involved, which is where we got some of the like Pac-Man style levels. You got the the Frogger, obviously. There was a Jackal level, which was kind of a nod to you and Dagon in that Let's Play that I always bring up.
I loved the art. The Jackal, like that's unique to the end of that stage, is super cool. Yeah. Shout out to that. I mean, that's a game we love.
That's a Josh special as well. That end screen.
The stand down,
yeah.
Oh, hello, puppy.
Yeah, she's sleepy, but she's restless still.
I totally. I would imagine. I would also be restless. In her predicament. So I guess I'll talk a moment about the writing, just from it's really the least important component of the game, but I've been using these games as kind of like palettes to try different things, and realized that Twin Breaker was probably the least successful game that I wrote from a storytelling perspective, just in that I tried too hard to make it something that I wanted it to be. And since it didn't play in the way that I wanted it to play, it just didn't make any sense, really. And so with Tribreaker, I wanted to write only what the game demanded. I remember with Habroxia 2, I was really gun shy after Twin Breaker, and I was like, I don't really want. And then people were like, dude, where's all the writing in the game? And we patched it. Remember Barry? We released a big patch for Habroxia 2 with like a bunch of story stuff, because everyone's like, oh, like don't just strip it out. So I was like, all right, let me like reassess this and see what the game demands. And so like all I knew that the game demanded was like an intro, like a predicate, and then an ending. We always do a secret ending. These games don't connect really per se to Habroxia and Perils. Habroxia and Perils are in the same universe. So we didn't have to worry about that. We just needed to kind of connect it to the first game. And I guess I'll spoil it here. I mean, this is kind of like an extensive look at the game or whatever, but like the secret ending shows you that it's just never really happened, I guess, or it's just a stupid idea that I came up with, kind of in a self-deprecating way. And that's how we wanted to kind of like have this secret ending. So when we were making Twin Breaker, the entire idea, as people know, because we've talked about it extensively, is like, I was like, I want to have a game that doesn't need story or context at all. And I want to give it so much story and context that it's like fucking ridiculous. And I thought that people would get it more than they did. But then I came to realize like, no, that's a failure of my own presentation of the story and like what I was trying to do. Like people liked the game, but they're like, yeah, this is cool. But I was like, yeah, isn't it weird? Like, isn't it like strange how much lore we put into this game and everything? And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't really matter. Like, and I was like, yeah, okay. I kind of failed on that front. Like I wanted it to be something it wasn't. So Tribreaker, I wanted to just take much more lightly. And then what I realized it demanded was like, yeah, the intro and the outro or the ending. And then what I did was I kept playing the game, and I was looking at Steam. Actually, I ran up like 40 hours or something in this game. Which is ridiculous when you consider it can be beaten if you're not trying to go for S ranks very quickly. So I ran through it, and I was like, and I would take notes like, how does the game change between stages where it would demand like an interstitial? And it was always like when the game format changed. And I was like, that's all it needs is dialogue that kind of acknowledges that something's going to change or that something was about to happen. And so there are runs where there are 3 or 4 stages where it's kind of the same, and so there's nothing. And then it will translate to some other play style or a boss battle or whatever, and you acknowledge it. And I think it was fairly successful. And like I look back, I'm still most proud, honestly, of Super Perils, of baking from a script point of view. And I'm so bummed that like I love that game so much, and I like wish that it did so much better from that perspective. But I think that game demanded more of a story and more of a predicate, and I think that this game kind of got exactly what it needed. And the other thing that I'm obsessed with, and I started doing this in Habroxia and Habroxia 2, is I like just the little storytelling modules of naming a stage and giving it a blurb. And that's it. And we did this to, I think, great effect with Habroxia, and especially Habroxia 2, where it's like, this is a Helium-3 station. And it just says like, aliens are docked here stealing Helium-3 or whatever it says. And it's like, it doesn't matter, but it just gives you a little bit of a vision of what could be happening here. And you move on. And I didn't weigh it down with a fucking collectible and like a document from the alien spaceship about all of these kinds of things. Although there is some of that as well, but so that's kind of my vision for it. I just wanted to be a little bit more loose with it, and let the game demand the story. And in that regard, it's most like Ninja Gaiden 1, I think. Because you know how in Ninja Gaiden 1, there'll be like a run of 2 or 3 stages, usually back to back, where they just go right into each other. And it's like day to night or something. And then at the end of that will be a boss fight and then like a cutscene. And then they might do that again. And then there might be a really quick stage and then another cutscene. So a little bit off balance like that too. I don't know if any of that read, but that was the attempt.
No, I think it did. That's, I guess, where I was able to come in, and it was nice to have those little prompts to go for, to expand on with the art. I think that's that might have been where the feedback and Twin Breaker came back to, is because I feel like for a lot of that there wasn't a visual component to that. So the format itself was just reading, pixel art text on a screen. So that in its essence might have been a bit more like, just because games as a format are a visual medium, it sort of feels like you would want, or audio visual medium, so you kind of want that balance there. Because it's like, I think that's the last thing people do or want to do when they get collectibles in a game, is like, oh, I have to read. Like that's
right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Is I was just playing Silent Hill 2 remake, and I got all the collectibles because I'm Barry and I first met and connected because we're both trophy people.
Mm-hmm.
And years ago, and I went and looked, and I was like, oh, collect all of the written documents, 3.2%. Like, it was so unimportant to people's enjoyment of a game they beat like 40 or 45% that a tenth of the people that beat it, or a 12th of the people that beat it, even bothered to read get the documents, and then maybe who even read them. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just weird, and I can't inject. And it's true. It's like I can't inject that too much, because it becomes a Colin game, and that's not necessarily what the market wants. So there'll be much more writing in the role-playing game, but I didn't write almost any of it. So you can't blame me for any of that. All right, Barry, where to from here? I mean, like, one thing I want to say that I think I failed at, and this was something that you brought up earlier, is like, I got to leverage I'm of two minds of this, like the marketing. The game is heavily reliant on Sacred Symbols, which is listened to by many people. And there is a major discrepancy. Like, this is the ironic thing, is that there were fewer, when we released Twin Breaker, there were significantly fewer people listening to the show. And we were significantly smaller on Patreon, and we sold significantly more copies of the game. And now we're at the same price point. We've experienced this point of inflation. $10 games are getting somewhat rare, especially quality games. And then we fast forward to this point in time, the show's bigger, the platform's bigger, but fewer people cared at the same price point, which is an inflated price point through that time perspective. So I feel like somewhere in there I fucked it up, but the other side of the coin is I don't know how much of it's in our control, unless we pay for to appear in certain places, to market and all that. And I just don't think that pays, it almost makes it seem like your coin flips are getting worse and worse and worse, like as far as like success, just based on the numbers. So I just don't know how much we can fight against the trends and how much we can control it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have about 100 thoughts on that, to be honest. We can talk about it more later, but just as a broad answer, I don't think it's. I think there's a lot of ways to read information from the past. Like, for example, I know I talk about this a lot on the Discord. Twin Breaker was our biggest launch, but it hasn't had a tail. Like the Habroxia games had smaller launches, but they've had tails that exceed the launch of Twin Breaker. So I guess one way we could have read that message was people were really interested to see what Twin Breaker was, but in the end, it didn't carry that staying power that might be needed to make a sequel in the first place.
Yeah. Like, I think, I don't know. Like, I like that we have all of these open projects that, like, we have a Discord for Lillymo that's just like all the rooms are just the different games that are in various, some things are just pitches, some things have builds, some things are far along and will actually come out, and some things won't. And I kind of like that attitude. I also feel like I don't want to have any creative control, like I think it's important that you're happy with like what you're making and feel satisfied with it. And it's kind of trite to say like, well, that matters more than the money. But in some sense, it like your satisfaction with the products is kind of pinnacle to keeping this going, until hopefully we hit with something that's bigger and more substantial.
Yeah, and I am satisfied with Tribreaker. Obviously, I'd hoped it would sell a little bit better, but I'm definitely happy with what we made. I'm happy with the response to it, and I'm not like I'm not doom and gloom on it as a whole. Like I think there's room for it to have legs. Maybe it'll pick up slowly over time, and like I think it's a good game, so there's reason for it too. But at the same time, I don't regret working on the project. We have other projects coming up, so we'll be all right. And I really wanted to wrap up that series, I guess we'll call it. Like I didn't want to just leave Twin Breaker on what it was. So regardless of the sales, I'm glad that we did it, and I'm happy with what we did.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense. I always bring up Spec Ops: The Line is this game that I was told has like this really unusual high sales number, like way more than just your baseline, like, few copies here and there, like where it sells it's actually like kind of grown over time in an appreciable way. And you even see that with, a much bigger game, but Stardew Valley, I don't know if you guys saw, the game's been out for, I think, 11 years and sold a quarter of its copies last year.
Yeah.
So like,
I didn't know that, but I know that's a huge hit. That's crazy.
Yeah. So
the
it's at
multiplayer
41.
update.
I'm sorry?
The multiplayer update like blew it up huge.
So yeah, brought people back. Like there are these reverse tales and ways to like salvage, not that game didn't need to be salvaged, but ways to bring people back. And it's like such an amazing story about a game that, it was, I think it's at 41 million cumulative and sold 11 million or something last year. And it's like, holy shit, it's just that guy. And that guy has to try to concentrate on that other game he wants to make too. So it's like, geez, man, that's like, it's crazy.
That's great to take a lesson from, though, that there's certainly a thirst in a market out there for games that can break through. So I think there's definitely an audience for us if we can hit it.
The other thing that I know you brought up, and I'd be interested to know your thoughts, and everyone can chime in on this, because I know, I see some physical games and some of the backgrounds or whatever is having a physical copy ready to go at launch and like how that would help us. And we've done that. We've had like external publishing going in the past to have games complement the release. I wondered, you felt like that would have helped us sell more copies. I think that's obvious, because I think there's probably people that will only buy physical copies still, even of these smaller games. And I know you said it was important for you for our next game to have a physical copy ready to go if we can at launch, which I'm going to try to set up. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that was a mistake?
I wouldn't say that, I'm definitely not certain on that, but that's a theory, right? And it's not so much that I'm talking about us selling more copies by virtue of those physical copies being included in the launch. I'm more talking about what I was saying before with having multiple, like basically chances for us to get noticed and get news out there. Like the announcement of a physical game does get a significant amount of attention, and we'll get eyes on the game that might not even be interested in the physical game, but discover it that way.
Yeah, it's a marketing beat. I think you're totally right on that front. Like for people that don't know what we do, like we worked in the past fruitfully and with great satisfaction with the East Asia Soft. But they've been kind enough to basically act as a sort of ghost publisher for us at this point. So they would put together a product for us, like a Hybraxia special, 2 special edition or whatever on Vita, and they would do all the inserts and everything, and then they would sell it. We would get a small cut. They would get most of it. And that's reasonable enough. They're doing a lot of the work. And I was basically like, could I basically pay you guys to just publish the games and sell them to me? Like just the games, and I'll make my own special editions. And they were like, yeah, we can do that. And so we did that with Super Perils, and we put it together, and the margins are just way higher, and it's just way healthier for us to do that. People would be surprised that we basically make a comparable, if we worked with a publisher and sold a physical version of the game, we would make a comparable amount of money on that physical copy that we would make on a digital copy. Maybe even a little less, depending on the game, because there's so much cost and there are middlemen and all of that. So so we have a nice amount of, I guess what I'm saying is we don't have to work with them and be like, this is where we fit in your release schedule and the cadence you want to release games. They basically get the games printed through their certification, licenses through PlayStation at a factory in like Indiana, and they just ship us the games. And some of them are sitting in my kitchen right now. And then we source all of the things. So like for Super Perils, we made a Super Nintendo style kind of release with a box, and for Habroxia, which we'll announce in soon, I have a bunch of things that it's going to be a much even cooler setup for the game that celebrates it even more. So we're learning as we go. And then my wife is the one that just puts them all in boxes and ships them out. So we have a little mom and pop operation going. So I think I want to test this with the next game, Barry, and I think we'll be able to line it up. I think things are even printing quicker than they've ever printed now. So, and
excuse me. And if we do, if you need a little bit more time on that, we can certainly just push back the release to line things up. So
yeah,
no worries there.
And I want to, I want to be more involved if I can. I have a real time problem. Like, I think probably everyone does, but like just in my own life through my own lens, like I just can't take on much more than I'm doing right now. So I have to take things kind of like bit by bit, like kind of bite off a little bit of Lillymo stuff as I go. But I'd like to be like more hands-on in trying to market it outside of Sacred and trying to figure out ways, like you said, to, be a little bit more deliberate in presenting the game. Cause I do think that I dropped the ball in that respect. But I also fear, like, Jesus Christ, where are games without something like Sacred Symbols? Like, what are those games doing? It makes me, it sucks,
Well, Josh was talking about it. Yeah. A lot of indies are not able to put out their game even sometimes, Lots of projects just don't ever even finish. So, and when they do, it's a crowded market. So
it really
certainly
is.
Thankful for every opportunity we can get in any way we can.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm sorry.
You guys are like, I mean, I look at this stuff a lot. You guys are, talking about how poorly your perspective is on the sales right now, but like you guys are in the top percentage margin of all indie games that release. Like you're definitely in the zone of like doing better than most. And that's consistent, across the board. It's been that way for years that, most indie games don't sell that many copies. But, like Long Tail is kind of there's been discussions about that for a long, long time that, indie games are a lot of developers have the mindset that video game development is a long tail orientation sort of perspective, that you release a game and then you make your next game, and the game that you released will eventually, grow, and you just continue doing that. And it might take you several years to make you look at your game as like a 10-year, how many copies did you sell over 10 years? Not how many copies did you sell immediately, but like everybody wants to look now, like where's my profit? Did I make the margin back? Like the cost of producing it, and where are all of our profits? And, but there's a lot of people that they make a really decent living. I've worked with a few guys that their whole thing is that they just make a game or two a year and they do pretty well. But they're just like one guy, and they'll hire for what they need. And, they're very quiet. They're very unnoticed, but they sell enough copies that it's generating enough profit for them to keep going. And, I think that like it's, the numbers that I've heard for Tribreaker currently are very worthy of being proud of, in the current market. And I think there's also to speak about the fact that it's a brick breaker, and that's not really a genre. Right? Yes. It is a genre, yes. But it's like it's an ancient dinosaur of a genre. Like there isn't a market of brick breakers. There's no like nostalgia bang of, it's a Metroidvania, everybody jumps on there's a Metroidvania crowd. There's a visual novel crowd. There's a horror, video game crowd. There's no brick breaker crowd.
That's
people
well said.
Pouring out of the, woodwork to jump on the next brick breaker that comes out. So you have work to do because you didn't the game is not something that like automatically draws interest. So you have to get eyes on it somehow, and that's a challenge all on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's very well said. Yeah, and I am grateful for how well we do. The thing I worry about is like I just want Barry specifically to just be taken care of and comfortable. Like I don't take any money out of Lillymo. So one day hopefully I will be able to do that, but like I'm not like so and the physical game stuff is stuff that I fund, and then I take the profits from, or most of the money from that. So I don't want to make it seem like I don't take anything, I don't make any money, but that's more of a licensing thing than anything. Like the games, the money we make from digital sales and all the rest, I just want it to be enough for Barry to like not have to worry,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, but I think you're right. I think the point about the Brick Breaker is especially well said, because I'm one of those Metroidvania people, right? Like where I'll play 5 or 6 a year, or more. And I'll do that every year. So, and I play a bunch of side scrollers and a bunch of Castlevania like games and all sorts of so I am that person. And I think you're right. And that's why I do think the heart and soul of our sales potential is ultimately the Habroxia games, I think, because I think that there is like a niche for arcade shooters and things like that. And that's the game. I don't know if you, Barry, if you notice this, but that's the game people ask most about. Like, will we do another one of those? And so that's cool. It's cool that we have something that people like. But Habroxia 2, I think, is Habroxia 1 or 2 the best selling game? I think it's 1.
Yeah, Habroxia 1 has sold the most copies, but it's worth noting that it's an $8 game and
right.
2 is a $10 game.
Right. So, but yeah, overall, like, and this is what this again gets back to what I was saying at the top. It's like, regardless of performance or how we perceive that performance, like I am really happy with the game. And like in some sense, like we've controlled what we can control. And I think that was really, it was cool. It was good to work with you guys and, to watch Barry kind of like coordinate and be the maestro of all this and just constantly working on things or whatever. I just, bravo to you. It's another project out in the wild. I'm sure it feels good. It's like birthing a child in some sense, probably for you in some weird way, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it was, for me, I was getting a bit stressed out because, when I envisioned this company or when I first started getting it going, I always wanted to have like a consistent output of like one game per year or something resembling that. So when we went that year where we just did an update to Habroxia 1 and didn't get anything new out, I was getting pretty stressed out about that. And that's kind of what birthed this project, or what made me really take it on in full, where it became evident that we weren't going to be able to have the JRPG ready last year, I guess now. So I was looking at what project we could get out that year, because we really needed to get something out. And I basically started working on 2 projects at the same time, Habroxia 0 and Tribreaker. And we worked on both of those in earnest until like the fall, until I was like, all right, Tribreaker is the one that's going to be ready first this year. Let's all focus up on this one. And we'll do Habroxia 0 soon. But yeah, that's what I'm glad we got it done so quickly, so efficiently, and I'm very pleased with what we did with such a, like, from birth to release. Like, that's what I was saying earlier to Josh, was that, or about Josh's work, was that you're saying this is his first game out, but this is the 3rd game we hired him for. He worked on this one most recently.
Right.
So to see this one come together so quickly and with a finished product that I'm so happy with, it was a great project.
I'm excited for people to see more about the future games, Habroxia 0, and the role-playing game. It's like everyone asks about it, and yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited about it. Like I'm amped about it. And
I really enjoy the world from what I've played so far, and I think shout out Henry as well, has done a really great job with some of the visuals there too. It's kind of a steel sharpened steel thing, actually, with that, seeing Josh and Henry's work. It's like, fuck. Now I have to do a good job too, but it's like, but it's just like, very blessed as well, obviously, to work with like Barry and Lillymo. Just to tag onto that, it's like, it's kind of tough in the world as like now as a freelance artist, because I was also much like your brother, Colin, made redundant last year with the end of a project at the studio I worked at. So it's like now I'm in the world of, freelance. And so it's nice to work with a client that's just like, yes, and it feels like everything is like a collaboration and it's not a dictation. Not that any of the other clients I work with do that, but it's just, yeah. I want Lillymo to succeed based on that as well. I just think, Barry in particular, I think you deserve a little more recognition for the games that you're making. And it's like working on game jams myself as well and trying to put something together quickly. I'm like, I realize how inept I am at that aspect compared to you. Like how quickly you can get something up and running and working and feeling like an actual game is kind of uncanny. Like I think that should be recognized. Like the ability for you that like the symbiosis you have with Game Maker Studio is like, yeah, I don't know. He's
like the Cylon. Did you guys watch Battlestar Galactica when they just put their hands in the water? You know, and they somehow communicate with the computers.
Yeah, it's like fuck AI. We got Barry and Game Maker. Like he's gonna be the major generator of all great creative visions going forward. But yeah, no, that's the other thing too. It's just I think with the way that the market goes, it's like yes, oversaturation, AI, all this other stuff. But I think Josh is right too. Is that it moves in cycles. People are going to start recognizing these asset flips and stuff like that, and there will be a sort of people will just get more tired of that thing. And you can see it even in the AAA space too. Like people are sort of done with the big open world things that take 40-50 hours and just feel like time sinks and repetition. And I think these bite-sized games that we've been making really fit the niche, that have the capacity or have the potential to fit that niche. It's just trying to find a market to like trying to find or like get ourselves into those places where people go, oh yeah, I've got a weekend, I'll spend $10, and it's like more enjoyable than going to the cinema or something like that. Like you get more value for money at that.
Yeah, I that's why I think I came up with that. I the term weekend game, and that was like the marketing term that I tried to pitch to people through the vision of, again, like I just having deep nostalgia of going in and picking up a game off the shelf on a Friday after school, and then like that's kind of your weekend, and you get a piece of satisfaction out of it. And the games were manageable for the most part, especially in the NES era. And so that's what I want. It's like, how much money and time can I demand out of a person before it's audacious? It's like, can I get $10 and a weekend from you once a year? Like, can we make a pocket of games in that space that people want to play? I think it's cool because you're exactly right. Like I bang on and on about this on Sacred all the time, but like I'm obsessed with looking at trophy completion numbers and just how no one finishes games and how disappointing that is. But it's just the reflection of reality. People are just tuned out. They're not going to give you all this time, and it's like you got to kind of meet them where they are. And I think that might be our most effective tool, frankly.
It's interesting that like you talk about that because like the Japanese studios always develop their games around that idea that like 60% of your players aren't going to make it past 40% of the game. So the first half of the game is always very easy, and it's even lighter in tone. So like the first half of the game is designed to be more inviting to fresh players and like family orientation and things like that, where it looks like it's cozier and simple, but then like all of the darker story material, all the darker tone, all the hard difficulty all comes in the back half for the truly dedicated people that actually play through it. And they actually intentionally design games that way because, and classically they did. And you can actually see that if you think about like the way games are, that's just been designed that way because they know that most people don't play all the way through a game. And it's kind of something I've always thought about. It's amazing to me how many people buy games and don't finish them, because finishing a game is important to me. So like me
too.
Yeah.
I finish almost, I was looking, I think I platinumed something like 20 games last year and beat something like 28 and didn't beat or abandon 3. It's like, that should be like kind of the balance that you're looking at or whatever, you know, where I'm like, I don't want to play this anymore. That should be hopefully rare, especially in an environment where you're not, I've said this so many times, but Dagan and I always talk about going and buying Deadly Towers on NES, which was like a broader bundle game with the fucking dopest box art you've ever seen in your life.
Oh yes,
and that is the
worst.
That game. That game sucks.
It's so bad.
And like we had no way to know who was going to tell us. Maybe Nintendo Power, but they were not going to probably be very honest about it. And it looks so good. And now you have all these tools where you're like, you should know exactly what you're getting into, even with demos. Steam's very generous returns policy. So people hopefully are finding their way to these things, but it's not that I don't like long games, because I really do. I just beat Metaphor, a month ago, and that was like a 70-hour experience, and it was great. But I don't want that all the time. I can't take that like all of the time. And then I just beat Silent Hill 2 yesterday, and that was 15 hours, and I was like, that was perfect. Perfect. You got in and out, and I beat it in like 3 nights, of like just of obsessive vacation gaming, and it was great. So, but yeah, I think people, but the other thing that I like, by the way, guys, is the $10 price point. I think the role-playing game is going to be definitely going to be more expensive than that. But generally speaking, I actually dig that. Like I want to make it so it's, and man, it shows you how crazy the monetary system is now and all that. But like $10 isn't, the end of the world, right? Like it's not the $70 investment. I was reading about Turok for some fucking strange reason yesterday. And, I forgot that was $80 when it came out in January of 1997. Like that's serious money. So I wanted to also be like, oh, come give us a chance, and it's not the end of all things. So I like that price point. I think that's a good place to find success, and then you can push volume, because otherwise it gets too risky. And I also see games sometimes that are totally overvaluing themselves. It's rare for me to see a game that undervalues itself, and I do think that we, in some sense, undervalue the games at $10. And people said the same thing about the physical copy of Super Perils when we did that, and we only charged $34.99 for it. And everyone's like, dude, you could have charged like. And I'm like, I don't want to wring people dry. Like, let's get a comfortable kind of circulation of business here. So $10. I like that price point. Do you agree with that, Barry, or do you think we should start pushing for meatier games that maybe get to a $14.99, $19.99?
I think it's all completely dependent on the project. So for the JRPG, I definitely agree it would be more than $10. I think every project that we have that we're working on right now, other than the JRPG, would fit into that $10 formula. But there's certainly other projects that we're looking at down the road that might be a 15 or a 20. Like there's a Metroidvania idea that we talked about with Henry years ago. That I think if we do get to that that'd probably be a year or two out, because that'll be a Henry project and he's working on the JRPG. But I think that one would maybe be a $15 or something.
And I hate to say it, but I envision the JRPG as a trilogy, so you're gonna be real busy with that, hopefully.
Hey, I'm open to it if it sells as good as we hope.
Yeah, I hope so, dude. I want when I look at it and I see like it's like. It's exactly what I wanted, which was like something that's very true to the time. I love Sea of Stars came up earlier, which I thought was a great game, but it's inspired by, again, like when I played the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, specifically Final Fantasy IV, one of my favorite games of all time. I'm like, this is so homey, comfortable. I'm playing Dragon Quest III now, and it actually doesn't have that hominess that like the Game Boy Color port or the NES original Dragon Warrior 3 had. Because it is redone and it looks a little too new and the UI is a little too friendly. Quick travel's a little too quick.
Sounds a little too new.
Yeah, it's right.
That's something.
Yeah, there's voice acting in it. It's like, come on, man. So I hope people get the vision of it. But I've been very disciplined not talking about what it's about. And shout out to Jono, who's right, like he basically wrote the game. I mean, I came up with the world and the idea and the story arc and the characters and all the rest. And I'm obsessed with the specific idea of what the game's about, but it was not going to get anywhere in my schedule. Like that was a difficult thing for me to do, but I relinquished it. And I think it has great potential for us. So I'm excited for everyone to see more of it and everyone's work in that game as well. Barreled, where do you want to leave things, my friend? Is there more to say? Is there more to pitch? Is there more to opine about? I mean, where's your head at?
Oh, no, I'm good, man. It's always good to be on a conversation with you here. So I'm glad that people in the Sacred Symbols audience checked out the game and supported us. We're always thankful for that. So I guess just thanks to everybody, and thanks to you for having us.
You're very welcome. And yeah, thank you guys for taking the time. I'll go around and say goodbye to everyone, of course. But the one thing I wanted to say, when I wrote a post on Patreon about like when the game came out and a little word about like what we're going to do with physical copies or whatever. And then the first like responses when I tweeted it out were like, so what's going on with physical copies? I'm like, okay, so maybe it'll be easier for me to just say what's going to happen is like, we want to do a physical copy of the game. And it is my hope that we will do one this year, but I don't know yet. The first thing we have to do is get Habroxia 1 done and out of here. Then I will probably actually move on to Habroxia 0 and try to sync that up. And then we will probably do it on the back end. But I would hope that like that would be Q4 maybe. Maybe we can even do it for the holidays and do something like that. So yes, I hear you. I know you want a physical copy. I'm sorry that we didn't have one ready to go. But we will try our best to get one going for, and it will be specifically for PS5. To remind people, Switch for copies, they won't print fewer than, like, they print so many at the lowest order, we would never sell enough. Like, it would never happen. So you can order as few as 1,015 PS5 copies. So we'll do something like that. So thank you for your patience on that. All right, let's go around the horn. Lazer, Josh, let's go to you first and say goodbye to you. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It's good to see you, to be with you. Congratulations on a job well done. Excited for our future collaborations. And
sure,
yeah, what's on your mind? Leave us with something witty.
Well, oh man, put me on the spot, why don't you? Well, I will say firstly, slightly sentimental. You know, I shook your hand, dude, at MomoCon in Atlanta.
Oh God, that was
yeah. I drove down there for that shit. I drove down there for the Kind of Funny thing, me and my best friend, and I emailed Kind of Funny, cold called you guys, trying to get work, but I had my sights set on this, dude, and so it is surreal to even be here talking and doing this, because yeah, it's just cool. So let me just get that little bit of fanboyness out there, Brett.
Cool, thank you. I remember that
dude,
MomoCon
sure.
visit, because it was
Yeah.
in my memory, it was like really near, what's that, Dragon Con or
Dragon
something?
Con, yeah.
And
yeah.
I think there was like some sort of time crossover or proximity crossover, and so I was like, oh God, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, there was cosplayers running around everywhere and stuff. I mean, MomoCon is awesome. It was a good time for sure. Played on the DDR machine at MomoCon quite a bit too. But anyway, yeah, dude. So had a blast. I appreciate the work and the trust, and let me give it a shot, because I didn't have anything to show except for a couple demo songs and a selfie video. And it was really freaking fun, dude. And I hope I can keep doing it. And I guess I'll say it. Hopefully this is okay. I guess I'm considered a freelance. I'm available. So if anyone wants some game music, holler at me.
Yeah, you're totally available. And
yeah, dude.
And we're gonna get. I'm going to get the Moby game stuff spooled up too, so people can have like updated links and use that stuff, because it does matter in the space. And
sure.
It can help. It can be helpful to you. So
awesome. Thanks, man.
So yeah, we'll have the full credits and all that ready to go, so you have something to point to.
Awesome.
Joshua,
really
let's say goodbye to you.
Okay.
Be well. You have a busy night ahead of you, probably.
Yeah.
Six children, although not all of some are out of the house probably at this point, so you don't have to worry about all of them.
I've still got four in the house.
So you can have a full night. Okay.
Yeah. My squirrel has been chewing at the door. She's ready for me to come out. So, yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful for Barry pulling me back out of out of my retirement, I guess, because I hadn't done anything for a while. I was just kind of sitting on my laurels, focusing on other things, and he approached me and got me back into it. And I honestly felt like Tribreaker rekindled my passion for working on games again. And I felt like I came back a stronger artist than I've ever been. And so the break was probably good, but Barry makes it so easy. He's so he's so good and chill about everything. And it's definitely the best developer I've ever worked with. Not just in the way he treats people, but the way he goes about the process. Always makes you feel like you have a lot to say about how the quality of your work and what you're doing with it. And it definitely makes things frictionless. And he's really good at that. And I really appreciate Lillymo for giving me the opportunity to work on these games, because I think that Tribreaker is the best game that I've worked on. Honestly, it's surprisingly more fun than I expected it to be. I mean, I've played a lot of brick breaker type things, like games that have this sort of format where you bounce the ball around and stuff over the years. And I don't know, when I was actually playing the game, I was actually finding myself really enjoying it and having a good time playing it. So yeah, it wasn't just doing work. It was actually fun. So I really enjoyed it. It's been a really great experience. So
Cool, man. Yeah, we appreciate your work, and yeah, it's been fun kind of talking shop with you, and yeah, getting to hear your opinions on the product. And that's a great compliment to Barry too, that it's, you know, the best of the projects that you've worked on. Lach, let's go to you and finish things up. What are your closing thoughts here as we exit?
Again, just echo what the boys have already said, that it's a pleasure to work and have worked with Barry and Lillymo again, and I will be doing so in the future on things not yet really spoken about, I guess. So watch this space. Ocean Grove is the name of the band as well.
Ocean Grove. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So check them out. Good Aussie new metal. And yeah, like I guess I'll be looking for work, but it's been nice to have a little break. One thing too that I've been doing, and I think it might be good for other people in the sacred symbol space too, or just listeners or viewers, I guess, as we're on camera right now. But I've been keeping a games journal. So like when I play games now, I like write my thoughts as I'm playing them. And I think that's helped me rekindle a bit more love for games again, because I was getting in a bit of a rut. I think everyone does. But I think it helps as well in terms of what Barry and I are doing with some of the games, is I've tried to play a lot of games adjacent to what we're making, so I can take note of what I like and don't like about those games and try and translate that. So just as a little, I don't know, PSA, it's like keep a notepad and pen next to your console or whatever, and if once you finish a session, like write something down. Yep, there it is. And that's helped me a lot, at least in terms of like enjoying games more, or being a bit more like cogent about my thoughts on something, and not just going, why do I not want to play this anymore? Or it's like, oh, well, I have reason, because, you know, there's like really annoying spawns killing you off camera. That's like a good reason to stop playing. But anyway, yeah. And just thank you again for the opportunity. And it was a pleasure to work with everyone on this. And I think everyone's work elevated everyone else's. The steel sharpens steel. If I'm not like smashing and ruining that phrase, I assume that's how it is. But yeah, I think it was one of those things where everyone helped elevate the game and brought their A game to this game. So yeah, it was a great experience, and I hope more people get to enjoy it.
I'm sure they will, and I'm sure this conversation will hopefully help drive more people to check it out as well. And yeah, you know, I think you've pushed me over the edge too with I was thinking recently about writing down, like not necessarily, you know, writing in a notebook, although that's very much that's very Colin, and that's an even better idea. But I was thinking about being like just going on Google Docs and just typing some things up, because what I'm finding is, and this is sad as hell, but it's like I play so many games where I like look back and I'm like, what was that even about? Like, you know, 6 months later, I'm like, dude, I couldn't even tell you the first thing about that game, and I somehow have the platinum trophy in it or something. It's like
Darkest Dungeon, right?
Dark. Yes.
Wasn't that your example like a year ago or something?
Yeah, exactly. Where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this is. Like,
did you get the platinum in that?
No. That was just
that's like,
yeah, no. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just look back sometimes. It's like I think back and I'm like, yeah, like I remember like the contours of the game, I guess, and what it was, but it's like I couldn't tell you the first thing about it sometimes. And I'm like, I gotta be more intentional about like experiencing these things as more than just products in a time, but like something that could be added to like a tapestry of experiences that inform me better. And that was what I wanted to say as I exit is you know, I have a very minor part in making these games. And like I tweeted this out lately, or more recently, actually, when we passed 100,000 copies sold of all of our games, which is awesome. And I was like, I'm so thankful to be part of it, because it's given me so much context that you couldn't possibly otherwise have as a commentator. And that's kind of what I'm known for and what I do. And it's not that people that don't have this experience don't have worthwhile things to say or even better things to say than they do. It's just that like you cannot replicate being in the trenches in some sense and understanding at a more basic level like how games are made, how they flow through pipelines to, you know, the various game stores, and how you deal with sales and how you deal with customers and updating and selling these games and all of the rest. Like I have context that I would never, ever, ever have had if not for Barry. So it's cool to be here. And in some sense, it's like, as I said earlier, it's like, yeah, I don't make any money off of Lillymo, but I almost feel like I should be paying Barry for like, for some sort of like some sort of retainer where it's like, I have this interesting insight and access to like a game in the wild every so often where it's like, I know exactly how it does. I know exactly how people play it. I know exactly how it's sold. I know exactly, you know, it's cool from that perspective because I love the industry, and you just don't get that otherwise. So I'm really, really grateful for that because I think it's made me a better commentator. And I hope people, especially Sacred Symbols fans, will like since it is a Sacred Symbols themed game, I hope they'll like the secret ending if they get it. And I saw that Barry, that you decided to make the game easier after all, because level 6 S rank was really driving people. And I got pretty nasty at playing the game pitch 90 degrees on that stage, actually.
Yeah.
You know, but I think you did the right thing. It's still a 3.3%, I think, platinum rate on PS5. So that's perfect. That's exactly where I want it. I don't want it too obscure. I don't want it too common. So I think you did a nice job on that for people like you and me. Are the
Steam achievements the PS5 list or the PS4 list?
The PS5 list.
Sick.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So guys, nice job. Good to talk to you and connect with all of you. Hope to talk to you all again soon. And thank you all out there for listening. Tribreaker is available on PSN, on Xbox, on Switch, on PC. It's $10. We really appreciate you. All of our other games are available too. Please check them out if you'd like to. Support independent game developers, even if they're not us. I totally appreciate and respect that, but go buy your games and support the people that make them. I'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.